They say rock bottom has a basement. I found mine on a Tuesday afternoon in a courtroom that smelled like old wood and broken promises. My ex-husband Marcus sat across from me, his lawyer whispering in his ear while he smirked. That smirk. God, I used to love that smirk when it was meant for me, when it made me feel like we were in on some secret together. Now it just made my stomach turn. Mrs. Mitchell, or should I say Ms. Hayes now? His lawyer's voice dripped with condescension. Let's be realistic about your financial capabilities moving forward. I sat there in my best dress, the navy one I'd bought on clearance 3 years ago, watching my marriage get dissected like a lab experiment. 7 years. 7 years of building a life with someone who now looked at me like I was an inconvenience, a problem to be solved, a chapter to be closed. Your Honor, Marcus's lawyer continued, adjusting his expensive glasses, my client has been the primary breadwinner throughout this marriage. Ms. Hayes has been, let's say, inconsistent with employment. Inconsistent. That's what they called it when you put your own dreams on hold to support your husband's career. When you worked 3 part-time jobs so he could go to business school. When you smiled through dinner parties with his colleagues while wearing shoes with holes in the soles because all the money went to his student loans, his networking events, his future. The judge looked at me with something like pity, and I wanted to crawl under the table. I was 30 years old, sitting in a courtroom, watching the life I thought I'd have get divided up like we were splitting a restaurant bill. Except there wasn't much to split. Marcus had made sure of that. If you were in my place, what would you do, and how would you feel? Don't forget to leave a comment. The defendant will retain the house, the vehicle, and the majority of liquid assets, the judge announced. Plaintiff will receive a one-time settlement of $15,000 and personal belongings. $15,000. For 7 years of my life. For every dream I postponed. Every ambition I shelved. Every piece of myself I made smaller, so he could expand. Marcus didn't even look at me as we left the courtroom. His new girlfriend, his executive assistant, was waiting in the hallway, all long legs and confident smile. She was everything I wasn't anymore, polished, ambitious, unbroken. She didn't know that Marcus used to say the same sweet things to me, make the same promises. She didn't know yet that his promises had expiration dates written in invisible ink. I drove away in my sister's borrowed car because the vehicle the judge mentioned, Marcus needed it for work, apparently. Always for work. I made it 3 blocks before I had to pull over because I couldn't see through the tears anymore. My phone buzzed. A text from my mom. How did it go, baby? I couldn't answer. How do you tell your mother that you feel like a failure? That you're 30 years old and moving back into her basement? That the man you loved, the one you believed in, the one you sacrificed everything for, just walked away without a backward glance? But you know what the worst part was? It wasn't the $15,000 or the basement apartment waiting for me. It wasn't even watching him leave with someone else. The worst part was sitting in that courtroom, listening to his lawyer paint me as this pathetic, dependent woman, and realizing that somewhere along the way, I had become exactly that. I used to be Zara Hayes, the girl with green eyes full of fire and dreams bigger than the Atlanta skyline. I used to sketch business plans on napkins at diners, stay up until 3 a.m. researching market trends, fill notebooks with ideas that made my hands shake with excitement. I was going to revolutionize the beauty industry, create products for women who looked like me, whose hair needed more than what the major brands were offering. But Marcus said it was too risky. Marcus said I should wait until we were more financially stable. Marcus said. And I listened. God help me. I listened to every word and let them reshape me into someone I didn't recognize. The basement apartment was exactly as depressing as it sounds. My mom had tried to make it welcoming. Fresh flowers on the dresser, new sheets on the bed, but we both knew what it represented. I was 30 years old, divorced, nearly broke, living in my childhood home's basement. The American dream, right? I spent the first week in a fog. I'd wake up reaching for Marcus, forgetting for those cruel seconds between sleep and consciousness that he was gone. Then reality would crash back in, heavy and suffocating. I'd lie there, staring at the water-stained ceiling, wondering how I'd gotten here, wondering if this was all my life would ever
be.
My best friend Keisha came by on day 8, found me still in pajamas at 2 in the afternoon, watching reality TV and eating cereal from the box. "Okay, that's enough," she said, yanking the remote from my hand. "I love you, which is why I'm going to be real with you right now. You look like hell. This place smells like sadness, and you're wasting your heartbreak." Wasting my heartbreak. I laughed, but it came out bitter. "What am I supposed to do with it, Keisha?"
Frame it.
"Sell it on eBay." "Use it," she said, sitting on the edge of my bed. "You know what your problem is, see? You forgot who you were before Marcus. You let him convince you that you were the supporting character in his story. But baby, you were always meant to be the lead in your own." I wanted to argue, to defend myself, but the words stuck in my throat because she was right. I had made myself small. I had dimmed my own light so his could shine brighter. And for what? So he could leave me anyway? "I don't even know where to start," I whispered, and it felt like the truest thing I'd said in years. Keisha pulled out her phone, scrolled for a moment, then showed me the screen. It was one of my old notebooks, photos she'd taken years ago when we were roommates. Page after page of business plans, product ideas, marketing strategies. Dreams I'd abandoned. "You start here," she said. "You start with remembering that you had a vision before Marcus ever entered the
Picture.
And that vision? It's still valid. It's still brilliant. It's still yours." I looked at those pages, at my own handwriting from another lifetime, and something shifted inside me.
It was
small, barely a flicker, but it was there, a spark of the girl I used to be. That night, after Keisha left, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about those notebooks, about the products I'd dreamed of creating. Natural hair care for Black women that actually worked, that actually understood our needs, our textures, our diversity. Products made with intention, with love, with real understanding of the community they served. The idea had come to me years ago after another frustrating trip to the beauty aisle, searching through products that either didn't work or weren't made with us in mind. I'd spent hours researching ingredients, talking to women in my community, understanding what we actually needed versus what the industry thought we needed. I'd presented it all to Marcus once, laid out my entire business plan over dinner. I can still see his face, the way he'd barely looked up from his phone as I talked. "That's nice, babe," he'd said. "But maybe focus on getting a stable job first? We can't both be chasing pipe dreams." "It's a pipe dream, can you believe he said this? It's a pipe dream." How would you react if you were there? Write in the comments, and you can like the video and subscribe to the channel for more. Pipe dreams. He'd called my passion a pipe dream while I worked 2 jobs to fund his realistic career goals. I got out of bed, went to the storage boxes my mom had helped me move in, and started digging. It took an hour, but I found them. 3 notebooks, worn at the edges, filled with my handwriting and sticky notes and dreams I'd been too scared to pursue. As I flipped through the pages, reading my younger self's enthusiastic notes and ambitious plans, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Not hope exactly. Hope felt too big, too scary. But possibility. The smallest whisper of possibility that maybe, just maybe, I could still become the woman I'd always meant to be. The $15,000 from the divorce settlement sat in my bank account like a question mark. Marcus's lawyer had made it sound like charity, like I should be grateful for the scraps. But as I sat there in my mom's basement at 3 in the morning, surrounded by notebooks and possibilities, I realized something. $15,000 might not be enough to rebuild a life, but it was enough to start a dream. I opened my laptop, the old one that took 5 minutes to boot up, and started a new document. At the top, I typed, "Business plan, NaturallyYou beauty products." My hands shook as I typed, but they weren't shaking from fear. They were shaking from something I'd almost forgotten: excitement. Pure, terrifying, exhilarating excitement about creating something that was entirely mine. The sun was coming up when I finally stopped typing, my eyes burning, my back aching, but my heart feeling lighter than it had in months. I had pages of notes, market research to do, contacts to make, 1,000 steps between here and success. But for the first time since sitting in that courtroom, I felt like myself again. I felt like Zara Hayes, not Marcus's ex-wife. Not the woman who wasn't enough. Just Zara, with green eyes full of fire and dreams that refused to stay buried. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I opened it. It was Marcus. Heard you're living with your mom now. Hope you're doing okay. Let me know if you need anything. I stared at that message for a long time, at the casual cruelty of it. He'd taken 7 years of my life, most of my money and my faith and love, and now he was checking in like he was doing me a favor.
Like he was the
magnanimous ex-husband, making sure his pathetic former wife was surviving. I thought about all the things I wanted to say to him, about rage and betrayal and the dreams I'd sacrificed for his comfort. But then I looked at my laptop screen, at the business plan I'd just started, at the future I was beginning to build for myself. Instead of responding, I blocked his number. Because this story wasn't about him anymore. It wasn't about us or what we could have been or what he took from me. This story was about what I was going to build from the ashes of what we'd destroyed. This story was about me finally becoming the woman I was always meant to be, with or without anyone's approval, with or without anyone's support, with or without anyone believing in me but myself. And as I closed my laptop and finally let myself sleep, I had no idea that this decision, this moment of choosing myself over anger, choosing creation over destruction, choosing forward over backward would change everything. I had no idea that the business plan I'd just started would, within 2 years, be worth over $1 million. But more importantly, I had no idea that I was about to prove to myself something far more valuable than any amount of money, that I had always been enough, that I had always been capable, that I had always been exactly who I needed to be. I just needed to stop listening to the voices that told me otherwise and start listening to the one voice that had been trying to get through all along, my own. The thing about rock bottom is that it gives you nothing left to lose. And when you have nothing left to lose, you become dangerous in the best possible way. I spent the next 2 weeks doing what I should have done years ago, research. Real, thorough, obsessive research. I woke up at 5 a.m. every morning, made coffee in my mom's kitchen while she got ready for her nursing shift, and worked until my eyes burned and my brain felt like it might explode. I studied every natural hair care brand on the market. I read reviews until I could recite them in my sleep. I joined Facebook groups, Reddit threads, Instagram communities, anywhere Black women were talking about their hair, their struggles, their needs. And the more I read, the more I realized something crucial. There was still a massive gap in the market. Sure, there were natural hair products.
Plenty of them.
But most were either too expensive for everyday use, or they were made by companies that didn't really understand the diversity of Black hair. Women with 4C coils needed different products than women with 3B curls. Women dealing with dry scalps needed different solutions than those fighting frizz. We weren't a monolith, but the industry kept treating us like one. "You've barely left this basement in 2 weeks," my mom said one morning, setting a plate of eggs beside my laptop. "I'm starting to worry about you, baby." "Don't worry, Mama," I said, looking up at her tired but kind face. "I'm building something. I'm actually building something real this time." She squeezed my shoulder, and I saw something in her eyes, pride mixed with concern. She'd watched me lose myself in my marriage. Now she was watching me try to find myself again, and I could tell she wasn't sure, which scared her more. By week 3, I had my product line mapped out. 5 core products to start: a moisturizing shampoo, a deep conditioner, a leave-in cream, a curl-defining gel, and a hair oil. Each one would come in 3 formulations, light, medium, and intense, to accommodate different hair types and needs. Simple enough to launch without massive overhead, comprehensive enough to actually help people. The hard part? Actually making them. I spent my entire $15,000 settlement, plus another $3,000 I borrowed from Keisha against her better judgment on ingredients, packaging, and a consultation with a cosmetic chemist named Dr. Patricia Chen. She was a 60-year-old Chinese woman who'd been formulating beauty products for 30 years, and she didn't sugarcoat anything. "Your formulas are ambitious," she said during our first meeting, her reading glasses perched on her nose as she reviewed my notes. "Some of these ingredient combinations I've never seen. That could be brilliant or disastrous. Which one do you think it is?" I asked, my heart in my throat. She looked at me over those glasses, really looked at me. "I think you understand your target market in a way. Most companies don't. But understanding and executing are two different things. You ready to fail a lot before you succeed?" I thought about Marcus's smirk in that courtroom, about his lawyer calling me inconsistent, about every time someone had made me feel small. "I'm ready," I said. Dr. Chen smiled. "Good. Let's get to work." The next 3 months were hell. Beautiful, terrible, exhausting hell. We mixed batches in Dr. Chen's small lab, adjusting ratios, testing pH levels, checking for stability. I learned more about emulsifiers, preservatives, and surfactants than I ever thought I'd need to know. My first 5 batches separated within a week. The next 3 smelled like rancid oil. Batch 9 looked perfect until it started growing mold. I cried more in those 3 months than I had during my entire divorce. "Maybe Marcus was right," I said one night, staring at yet another failed batch. "Maybe this is a pipe dream." Dr. Chen, who was cleaning equipment beside me, stopped. "You know what the difference is between a pipe dream and a vision?" she asked. "About 1,000 failures and the stubbornness not to quit after 999. On the 73rd day, batch 14 worked. It didn't separate. It didn't smell bad. It didn't grow mold. I tested it on my own hair, and for the first time in months, my curls looked the way they did when I was 22, before stress and heartbreak had taken their toll. I took a photo and sent it to Keisha, with shaking hands. "I think we did it." She called immediately. "Girl, your hair looks amazing. When can I try it?" "Soon," I said, but even as I said it, reality crashed back in. I had working formulas, but I had no money left for manufacturing, no connections for production at scale, no idea how to actually turn this from samples into a real business. I'd spent everything I had just getting to this point. That night, I made a list of everything I needed to actually launch: manufacturing equipment or a co-packer, packaging design, a website, marketing materials, business licenses, insurance. The total came to approximately $40,000. Might as well have been $40 million. I applied for 12 small business loans. Got rejected by all 12. My credit score was tied to Marcus during our marriage, and apparently his post-divorce spending spree had tanked it. Banks looked at me and saw exactly what Marcus's lawyer had painted: an inconsistent woman with no real business experience and no assets. "We appreciate your interest, but at this time we cannot approve your application," became my least favorite sentence in the English language. I tried to stay positive, but it was getting harder. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, panic crushing my chest, wondering if I'd made a terrible mistake. I'd used every penny I had, borrowed from my best friend, spent months of my life, and for what? Products that worked, but I couldn't manufacture. A dream that was dying before it even started. My mom found me crying in the basement at 2 a.m. on day 91. "Baby, talk to me," she said, sitting on the edge of my bed like she used to when I was a kid having nightmares. "I failed, Mama," I whispered. "I thought I could do this, thought I could prove everyone wrong, but I failed." "Did you quit?" "What? Did you quit?" she asked again, her voice firm. "Because if you didn't quit, you haven't failed. You've just hit an obstacle." "Mama, it's not just an obstacle. It's Let me tell you something about your grandmother, she interrupted. Your Grandma Rose, who you're named
After.
When she wanted to buy her first house, every bank in Atlanta turned her down. Black woman, single, working as a maid. They laughed at her, baby. But you know what she did? I shook my head. She saved every penny for 3 more years, worked double shifts, sold her baked goods on weekends.
And
When she went back to those banks, she had enough for a down payment that they couldn't ignore. She bought that house in 1967, and we lived in it until she died. Your grandma taught me something important. The world will try to stop you, especially when you're a black woman trying to build something. But they can only stop you if you let them. I thought about Grandma Rose, about her determination, about the house I grew up visiting every Sunday.
I'd
Never thought about the struggle behind it, the doors that slammed in her face, the times she must have wanted to quit. I don't have 3 years, Mama, I said. Keisha needs her money back. Dr. Chun can't keep giving me lab time for free. I'm already 30, and I'm living in your basement with nothing to show for it. So find another way, she said simply. You're smart, Zara. Smarter than you give yourself credit for. If banks won't give you money, find people who will. After she went back upstairs, I couldn't sleep. Find people who will. The phrase kept repeating in my mind. Banks wouldn't invest in me, but maybe individuals would. People who understood the struggle, who needed these products, who believed in the vision. At 3 a.m., I opened my laptop and Googled crowdfunding platforms.
Kickstarter.
Indiegogo. GoFundMe. Pages and pages of people asking strangers to believe in their dreams. Why couldn't I do the same? I spent the next week creating a crowdfunding campaign. I filmed a video in my mom's basement, talking directly to the camera about my vision, about why these products mattered, about the gap in the market I was trying to fill. I didn't hide my divorce or my struggles. If anything, I leaned into them. My name is Zara Hayes, I said to the camera, my green eyes looking directly into the lens. A year ago, I was sitting in a courtroom, watching my marriage end and feeling like my life was over. But I realized something in that moment. I had spent 7 years making myself smaller for someone else's comfort. These products, NaturallyYou Beauty, they represent everything I'm done apologizing for. My ambition, my dreams,
My
refusal to settle for less than I deserve. And if you're a black woman who's ever felt invisible to the beauty industry, who's ever struggled to find products that actually work for your hair, who's ever been told your dreams are too big or too risky, these products are for you too. I set my funding goal at $35,000. Enough to start small batch manufacturing, create professional packaging, and launch a basic website. I offered different reward tiers. $10 got you a thank you note and your name on our website. $50 got you 1 full-size product. $100 got you the complete 5-product set. I hit publish on the campaign at midnight on a Friday and immediately felt like I might throw up. What if nobody cares? I asked Keisha over the phone. Then we'll figure out plan C, she said.
But Z?
I don't think that's going to be the problem. The first donation came in at 12:03 a.m. $50 from someone named Michelle in Houston.
Her note said, I see you, sis.
Let's do this. I cried. By morning, I had 23 donors and $1,100. By Sunday night, 5,000.
By
Wednesday, I'd hit 10,000, and the campaign was getting shared across social media platforms I didn't even know existed. Women started commenting, sharing their own stories of divorce, loss, starting over. They posted pictures of their hair, their struggles, their excitement about products made specifically for them by someone who understood. The campaign became less about me and more about all of us. Every black woman who'd ever felt overlooked, underestimated, or invisible. A beauty blogger with 200,000 followers posted about the campaign. This is what the industry
needs.
Real products from real understanding. I'm backing this, and you should too. The campaign exploded. Life can be tiring sometimes, but we always have strong reasons to get up. Subscribe and join us. You are one of us. In 30 days, I raised $47,612 from 3,241 backers. Almost $50,000 from people who believed in a vision they hadn't even seen. Yet, from a woman they didn't know, because the story resonated with something they'd experienced
Themselves.
I sat in my mom's basement, staring at that number on my screen, and I couldn't stop shaking. This was real. This was actually happening. I had funding. I had support. I had a chance. The first thing I did was pay Keisha back, plus interest she refused to accept. The second thing I did was secure a small manufacturing partnership with a woman-owned co-packer in North Carolina who specialized in natural beauty products. The third thing I did was hire a designer for my packaging and a developer for my website. But the fourth thing I did, and maybe the most important, was prove to myself that I wasn't who Marcus had made me believe I was. I wasn't inconsistent or incapable or destined to fail. I was a woman with a vision and the guts to pursue it, and that was enough. Dr. Chen called me after I signed the manufacturing contract. Congratulations, Zara. You did the hard part. The hard part. I laughed. Dr. Chen, this is just the beginning. No, she said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. The hard part was believing you could. Everything else is just work. 6 months after sitting in that courtroom, 6 months after moving into my mom's basement with nothing but $15,000 and broken dreams, I was launching a real business. Not a pipe dream. Not a fantasy.
A
real, tangible, crowd-funded business with actual customers waiting for products I'd created. The girl who'd made herself small was gone. In her place was a woman who'd learned that sometimes you have to lose everything to find out what you're really made of. And I was just getting started. Launch day felt like standing on the edge of a cliff, knowing you have to jump but not knowing if there's water below or rocks. I'd moved out of my mom's basement 3 months earlier into a tiny studio apartment that doubled as my office and storage space. Boxes of NaturallyYou products lined every wall. The packaging had turned out even better than I'd imagined, clean, modern, with the texture of my own hair embossed on the bottles. Each product had a small card inside that read, "Made with intention. Made with love. Made for you." My website went live at midnight. I'd stayed up, refreshing the order page every 30 seconds, terrified that the system would crash or nobody would buy, or I'd discover some catastrophic error at the worst possible moment. The first order came through at 12:04 a.m., then another at 12:06, then 3 more. By sunrise, I had 217 orders. By noon, 563. By the end of that first week, I'd sold 3,842 units. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't believe it was real. Life starts to surprise you at a moment you least expect, and this time the sun rises for me. This time the rainbow appears for me. This time luck is on my side. Have you experienced such events or had such moments? Don't forget to mention it in the comments and like the video and subscribe to the channel for more. This is insane, Keisha said, helping me pack orders in my apartment-turned-warehouse. Z, do you realize what's happening? You're not just selling products. You're building a movement. She was right. It wasn't just about the hair care anymore. Women were posting before and after photos, writing reviews that made me cry, tagging me in posts about reclaiming their power after divorce, after loss, after years of making themselves smaller. They were using my products, but they were telling their own stories of transformation. One woman wrote, "I bought NaturallyYou after my husband left me for someone younger. Using these products every morning became my ritual of choosing myself. 6 months later, I don't even recognize the broken woman I used to be." Another. My daughter saw me using NaturallyYou and asked why I was smiling at myself in the mirror.
I
realized it was the first time in years she'd seen me treat myself with care. Thank you for reminding me I'm worth it. Every review, every photo, Every story reinforced something I'd learned the hard way. We weren't just buying products. We were buying permission to invest in ourselves, to believe we deserved good things, to take up space unapologetically. 3 months after launch, I got an email that changed everything. The subject line read, "Feature request. Essence Magazine." Essence. The Essence magazine wanted to feature NaturallyYou in their New Beauty Brands to Watch section. They wanted to interview me, photograph the products, tell my story to their millions of readers that I called my mom, sobbing. "Mama, Essence wants to feature me." "Of course they do, baby," she said, and I could hear the pride in her voice. "The whole world is about to know what I've always known. You're extraordinary." The article came out 2 months later. The photographer had captured me in my studio apartment, surrounded by products, my natural curls full and healthy, my green eyes looking directly at the camera with a confidence I'd had to build from scratch. The headline read, "From Divorce to Empire: How Zara Hayes Built NaturallyYou." From rock bottom. The article didn't shy away from my story. They quoted me talking about my marriage, about being told my dreams were pipe dreams, about choosing to believe in myself when nobody else would. They called me a testament to the power of Black women's resilience and entrepreneurship. My website crashed within 2 hours of the article going live. Orders flooded in so fast, I had to call my co-packer in a panic, begging them to triple production. I hired my first 2 employees, both Black women who'd been following my journey since the crowdfunding campaign. My tiny studio apartment couldn't hold inventory anymore, so I rented a small warehouse space. 6 months after launch, NaturallyYou had made $375,000 in revenue. Not profit, I was reinvesting everything into growth, but revenue. Real, tangible proof that I'd built something sustainable. But success does something interesting to you. It doesn't just change your bank account. It changes how you carry yourself, how you speak, how you take up space in the world. I started dressing differently, not expensive, but intentional. I got my hair done professionally for the first time in years, and the stylist used my own products, raving about how well they worked. I joined a gym, not to lose weight, but because I needed to do something physical after spending 12-hour days at a computer. I was becoming a different version of myself. Not the girl I was before Marcus, and definitely not the woman I was during our marriage. Someone new entirely. Someone I actually liked. That's when I started seeing Marcus around town. The first time was at a coffee shop I'd started frequenting. I was working on my laptop, finalizing a deal with a major beauty retailer, when I felt someone staring. I looked up and there he was. He looked different, tired, older somehow, though only a year had passed. His suit wasn't as crisp as I remembered. His confidence wasn't as unshakable. Our eyes met, and I saw something flash across his face. Surprise? Recognition? Regret? I couldn't tell, and didn't care enough to figure it out. I looked back at my laptop and kept working. He didn't approach me that time, but I felt his eyes on me for the entire hour I sat there. The second time was at a networking event for Atlanta entrepreneurs. I'd been invited to speak on a panel about building businesses from the ground up. I was backstage, reviewing my notes, when I heard his voice. "Zara?" I turned, and there he was again. Up close, the changes were more obvious. The lines around his eyes were
deeper.
His smile was uncertain in a way it never used to be. "Marcus," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "What are you doing here?" "I'm trying to get funding for a new venture," he said. "Tech startup." "You're speaking on the panel?" "I am." He nodded, looking me up and down in a way that once would have made me feel self-conscious. Now it just felt invasive. "You look good. Really good. I heard about your business. NaturallyYou, right? That's really impressive, Zara." "Thank you," I said, checking my phone to avoid prolonging the conversation. "I always knew you had good ideas," he continued, and something about his tone made my jaw clench.
"I'm
glad you finally pursued them." Finally. Like I'd been the one holding myself back. Like he hadn't spent 7 years convincing me my dreams weren't worth pursuing. I need to go, I said. They're calling speakers. Wait, he said, touching my arm. I pulled away immediately. Can we get coffee sometime? I'd love to hear more about your business. Maybe I could offer some advice, mentor you through the growth phase. I laughed. Actually laughed out loud. Mentor me. His face reddened. I just meant I've been in business longer and I know the mistakes to avoid. Marcus. I interrupted, my voice calm but firm. I don't need your advice. I don't need your mentorship. I don't need anything from you. I figured out how to build this without you, and I'll figure out how to grow it without you too. I walked away before he could respond, my heart pounding but my head held high. During the panel, I told my story, the whole story. The divorce, the basement apartment, the rejection, the crowdfunding, the growth. I didn't mention Marcus by name, but I didn't have to. The person who told me my dreams were pipe dreams. I said to the audience, they're not in my life anymore. And that's the best business decision I ever made. The audience erupted in applause. I saw Marcus in the back, his face unreadable. After the event, 3 investors approached me about potential funding for expansion. One of them, a Black woman named Jennifer, who ran a venture capital firm focused on women-owned businesses, handed me her
card.
I've been following NaturallyYou since your crowdfunding campaign, she said. I think you're ready to scale. Let's talk numbers. 2 weeks later, I signed a deal for $250,000 in investment funding in exchange for 15% equity. Jennifer believed in my vision, trusted my numbers, and most importantly, treated me like the CEO I'd become, not the struggling divorcee I used to be. With the investment, everything accelerated. I hired a full team, a marketing director, a product developer, a logistics coordinator, a customer service manager. We moved into a real office space. We expanded the product
line.
We secured partnerships with major retailers. Target, Ulta, Sephora wanted to carry NaturallyYou. 12 months after launch, my business hit 7 figures in revenue. $1,147,000. I stared at that number in my accounting software for 20 minutes straight, tears streaming down my face. I'd done it. I'd actually done it. The girl who was told she was inconsistent had built $1 million business from $15,000 and a dream. The woman who'd sat in a courtroom feeling worthless now employed 15 people and served thousands of customers. The person who'd been made to feel small had taken up so much space the industry couldn't ignore her. I called my mom first. Mama, we did it. We hit $1 million. She screamed so loud I had to pull the phone away from my ear. I'm so proud of you, baby. Your grandma, Rose, is up there dancing. You hear me? She's dancing. I called Keisha second. Remember when you said I was wasting my heartbreak? Best investment of sadness I've ever seen, she said, laughing and crying at the same time. I called Dr. Chin third. You said I needed to fail 1,000 times before I succeeded. Did you make it to 1,000? She asked. I lost count somewhere around 600. Good, she said. That means you were too busy succeeding to notice. That night, I treated my team to dinner at the nicest restaurant in Atlanta. We toasted with champagne that cost more than my first month's rent in the basement apartment. We laughed about the early days, the mistakes we'd made, the moments we thought we'd fail. My marketing director, a 25-year-old named Jasmine with 2 kids and dreams bigger than the city, stood up to make a toast to Zara, who showed us that rock bottom is just the foundation for something better. I looked around that table at the team I'd built, at the business we'd created together, at the lives we were changing, including our own, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Complete. Not because of money or success or recognition, but because I'd proven to myself that I was exactly who I needed to be all along. But here's what nobody tells you about success. It has a way of bringing your past back around. I was leaving the office late one Thursday night, exhausted but satisfied, when I saw a familiar car parked across the street. Marcus's car. Or what used to be his car. It looked older now, dirtier, like he hadn't washed it in months. He got out when he saw me, and even from a distance, I could see how much he'd changed. The confident swagger was gone. His clothes were wrinkled. His face was drawn. "Zara," he called out.
Please.
"I need to talk to you." Every instinct told me to get in my car and drive away. But something made me wait. Maybe curiosity. Maybe the need to see exactly how far I'd come by seeing exactly how far he'd fallen. "Make it quick, Marcus," I said, keeping my distance. "I have an early meeting tomorrow." "I lost everything," he said, and his voice cracked. "The business, the house, everything. My partner, the one you met, the assistant, she left when the money ran out. I'm living with my brother. I'm 32 years old, and I have nothing." I waited for the satisfaction, for the vindication, for the justice of watching him suffer the way he'd made me
Suffer.
but all I felt was nothing. Not pity, not satisfaction, just a distant sort of acknowledgement that karma existed. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, and I meant it in the most neutral way possible. "I was wrong," he continued, stepping closer. I stepped back. "I was wrong about you, about us, about everything. You were always the talented one, the visionary. I just couldn't see it because I was too threatened by it. And now you're—" He gestured at my car, my clothes, the confidence I wore like armor. "You're everything I pretended I was. Marcus. I know I don't deserve it, but I need your help. A job at NaturallyYou, or maybe a loan to get back on my feet, or just advice. Something. Anything.
Please, Zara.
For what we used to have." And there it was. The moment I'd fantasized about during those dark nights in my mom's basement. My ex-husband, the man who'd called my dreams pipe dreams, begging me for help. What do you think I should do to Marcus? If you liked the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. The man who'd taken everything from me, asking me to give him more, that I looked at him, really looked at him, and I saw exactly what he was, a man who'd built his entire identity on making other people small so he could feel big. And when I stopped being small, when I started taking up the space I deserved, his whole world collapsed because it was never actually built on anything real. "No," I said simply. "No." His face contorted. "Just like that? After everything we what, Marcus?" My voice was calm, but there was steel underneath it. "After you spent 7 years convincing me I wasn't capable? After you called my passions pipe dreams? After you left me with $15,000 and made me feel like I should be grateful for it? After you sat in that courtroom while your lawyer painted me as some pathetic, dependent woman? I said I was sorry. You said you were wrong. That's not the same as sorry. Sorry would have been a year ago.
Sorry would have
been when you saw me at that coffee shop and I was clearly doing well. But you only want my help now that you need it. That's not sorry. That's just desperate." "So that's it?" he said, anger creeping into his voice. "You're just going to watch me suffer?" "No, Marcus. I'm not going to watch you do anything. I'm going to go home to my apartment that I pay for, wake up tomorrow in my office where I employ 15 people, and continue building the business you said would never work. What you do with your life is no longer my concern." I got in my car, and as I drove away, I looked in the rearview mirror. He was standing there in the parking lot, looking lost in a way that once would have broken my heart. Now it just reminded me how far I'd come from. The woman who thought she needed his approval to breathe. I'd spent so much time imagining this moment, fantasizing about telling him off or making him grovel or getting revenge. But the reality was so much better than any fantasy. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need him to suffer. I didn't need anything from him at all. I was Zara Hayes, founder and CEO of $1 million beauty empire, and I'd built it from the ashes of the life he thought I'd never recover from. That was enough. They say success is the best revenge, but that's not quite right. Success isn't revenge at all. It's freedom. 18 months after hitting my first million, NaturallyYou crossed $5 million in annual revenue. We'd expanded to 42 employees, opened a flagship store in downtown Atlanta, and our products were now in over 3,000 retail locations nationwide. Forbes featured me in their 30 Under 40 list.
Black.
Enterprise named me Entrepreneur of the Year. I was invited to speak at conferences, mentor young business owners, and serve on advisory boards. But the real measure of my success wasn't in the numbers or the accolades. It was in the morning I woke up and realized I hadn't thought about Marcus in 3 weeks. Not with anger, not with pain, not even with the distant satisfaction of knowing he'd been wrong about me. He'd simply become irrelevant to my story. I'd started dating again, cautiously at first. A few coffee dates that went nowhere, a brief relationship with a nice guy who ultimately wasn't right for me. Then I met David at a business conference in Chicago.
He was a
marketing executive, soft-spoken and kind, with brown eyes that crinkled when he smiled. What struck me most was how he listened, really listened, when I talked about my business, asking thoughtful questions and genuinely engaging with my ideas. "You built all of this from scratch?" he asked over dinner on our third date. "That's incredible, Zara." "With a lot of help," I said, deflecting automatically before catching myself. "Old habits." "Actually, no.
I did
build it from scratch. With support from amazing people, but yes, I built this." He smiled at that. "I love how you corrected yourself. Own it. You should be proud." I was learning to take up space without apologizing, learning that I could be successful and soft, ambitious and vulnerable, powerful and still need people. Marcus had made me think I had to choose. David showed me I never did. 6 months into our relationship, he came to the NaturallyYou office for the first time. I watched nervously as he walked through, meeting my team, seeing the warehouse floor where we filled orders, the testing lab where we developed new products. "This is remarkable," he said, pulling me close in my office afterward. "You're remarkable. I hope you know that." "I'm starting to," I said. And I meant it. My mom hosted Sunday dinners at her house now, the whole family gathering around her table like we used to when I was a kid. But the conversations had changed. Instead of asking when I'd settle down or stop taking risks, my aunts asked for business advice. My younger cousins wanted to know how I'd done it, how they could follow their dreams too. "Your Grandma Rose would be so proud," my mom whispered one evening, squeezing my hand. "I wish she could have seen this." "She did," I said. "Every time you encouraged me to keep going, that was her. Every time you reminded me who I really was, that was her too." The second anniversary of NaturallyYou's launch fell on a Tuesday, the same day of the week I'd sat in that courtroom watching my marriage end. The symmetry wasn't lost on me. We planned a big celebration at our flagship store, a party for customers, team members, and everyone who'd supported the journey. The store was packed. Women of all ages filled the space, testing products, taking photos, sharing their own transformation stories. My team had created a timeline on one wall, photos from the crowdfunding campaign, the first product shipment, the Essence magazine feature, the day we hit $1 million. At the end of the timeline was a mirror with words etched above it. "You are the next chapter." I was giving a speech, thanking everyone who'd made this possible, when I saw him, Marcus, standing in the back of the store, half hidden behind a display. He looked worse than the last time I'd seen him, thinner, grayer, wearing a jacket that had seen better days. Our eyes met, and instead of looking away like he did before, he mouthed, "Congratulations." I nodded once, then continued my speech. After the event, as people were leaving, he approached me. "I won't take much of your time," he said quickly, hands in his pockets. "I just wanted to see this place, see what you built, and to say, I'm sorry. Really sorry. Not because I need something, but because you deserve to hear it. 2 years ago." I studied his face, looking for the manipulation, the angle, the thing he was really after. But all I saw was a Broken man who'd finally realized what he'd lost. Not me specifically, but the chance to be part of something real, something built on actual support and partnership instead of control and diminishment.
Thank you, I said.
I appreciate you saying that. I heard you're with someone new, he continued. I'm happy for you. Genuinely happy.
You deserve someone
who sees you the way I never could. Marcus, I said gently, I don't need your blessing or your happiness for me, but I accept your apology. I hope you find whatever you're looking for in your own life. He nodded, tears welling in his eyes. I see myself in every man who doesn't appreciate what he has until it's
gone.
I teach a class now at the community center. Financial literacy, helping people avoid the mistakes I made. It's not much, but it's something. It's my way of trying to be better than I was. You can like and subscribe to the channel for more videos. That's good, I said, and I meant it. We all have to start somewhere. He left without asking for anything, without making excuses, without trying to insert himself into my life.
Just a
man who'd finally learned a lesson that cost him everything. David found me standing alone after Marcus left, staring at the timeline wall. You okay? He asked, wrapping his arms around me from behind. Yeah, I said, leaning into him. I really am.
I was just thinking about that woman.
I pointed to a photo from the crowdfunding campaign, me in my mom's basement, hair in a messy bun, eyes tired but determined.
She
had no idea what was coming. The success, sure, but more than that, she had no idea how strong she already was. She knew, David said. She just needed the world to catch up to what she already knew about herself. 3 months later, I stood on a stage at a women's entrepreneurship conference in front of 2,000
people.
The moderator asked me the question I'd been asked 100 times. What would you tell your younger self sitting in that courtroom 2.5 years ago? I thought about all the things I could say. That it gets better. That you're stronger than you think. That the pain has purpose. All true, but not quite right. I'd tell her this, I said, looking out at the sea of faces. The person who broke you won't be there when you rebuild yourself. And that's not a tragedy. That's the point. You're not rebuilding to prove something to them. You're rebuilding because you finally understand that you were never broken in the first place. You were just with someone who needed you to believe you were. The audience erupted in applause, but I was looking at one woman in the third row, tears streaming down her face, nodding like I'd just told her exactly what she needed to hear. I saw myself in her, the woman I was, the woman I'd fought to become. After the conference, she waited in line to talk to me. I'm going through a divorce right now, she said.
My
husband said my business idea was stupid. He's keeping everything in the settlement. I feel like my life is over. I took both her hands in mine. Your life isn't over. Your old life is over. And that's terrifying and painful, and it feels like dying. But on the other side of that death is a version of yourself you haven't met yet. A version who's going to do things that would make your current self's jaw drop. I promise you. She hugged me, sobbing into my shoulder, and I remembered Keisha doing the same for me in my mom's basement. The cycle of women lifting women, believing in each other when the world tells us we're not enough. NaturallyYou hit 10 million in revenue the following year. We expanded internationally. I wrote a book about my journey that became a bestseller. I started a foundation that gave microloans to women entrepreneurs who couldn't get traditional funding, especially women of color, women leaving bad marriages, women who just needed someone to believe in their vision. I bought a house, not a mansion, but a beautiful home with a garden and space for the life I was building. My mom cried when I gave her the keys to the guest house in the back. You don't have to work anymore, Mama. Let me take care of you for a change. Baby, I like working, she said. But I like knowing I don't have to even more. Thank you. David proposed on a Tuesday in the coffee shop where I'd first seen Marcus after the divorce. Not because of Marcus, but because it was where David had first realized he was in love with me, watching me work on my laptop with that focused intensity that made the world around me disappear. "You are so completely yourself," he said, down on one knee. "Not performing, not trying to be anything other than exactly who you are." That's when I knew. "Will you marry me, Zara?" I said yes, not because I needed him to complete me, but because I wanted to share the complete life I'd built with someone who enhanced it rather than diminished it. We got married in my mom's backyard, surrounded by the people who'd supported my journey. Keisha was my maid of honor. Dr. Chen came and cried through the whole ceremony. My team made a toast about how I was proof that good things happen to people who refuse to give up on themselves. I wore a dress I bought without looking at the price tag, my natural hair styled and goddess locks adorned with gold thread, my green eyes bright with happiness I'd earned through every tear, every failure, every moment I chose to keep going when giving up would have been easier. During my vows, I looked at David and said, "You asked me once what my secret was, how I built NaturallyYou from nothing. The secret isn't business savvy or good timing or even the products themselves. The secret is that I spent 7 years learning exactly what I didn't want. And then I spent every day since building exactly what I did. Thank you for being part of what I want." 5 years after that Tuesday in the courtroom, I found myself back in a courtroom, this time as an expert witness in a case about business discrimination against women of color. The lawyer asked me about my experience, and I told my story one more time, but this time from a place of authority rather than pain. In the gallery, I saw Marcus, older now, grayer, wearing a suit that looked borrowed. Our eyes met, and he smiled. Not the smirk I used to know, but something sadder and wiser. He mouthed, "Thank you." I wasn't sure what he was thanking me for not crushing him when I could have, for showing him what real strength looked like, for moving on and letting him fade into the background of a story that was never really about him anyway. It didn't matter. I nodded politely and returned my attention to the testimony, because that's what I'd finally learned. My story was never about Marcus or what he took from me. It was about what I gave myself: permission to dream, courage to try, resilience to continue, and wisdom to know that I had always been enough. The girl with green eyes full of fire hadn't disappeared in that basement apartment. She'd just been sleeping, waiting for the moment when the woman she'd become was ready to let her out again. NaturallyYou Beauty crossed 20 million in revenue last year. We employ over 100 people. Our products are in 15 countries. I've been featured in countless magazines, spoken at conferences around the world, and mentored dozens of women building their own dreams from the ashes of their own rock bottoms. But my proudest moment wasn't hitting 20 million or seeing my face on magazine covers or buying my mom a house. My proudest moment was the day I looked in the mirror, saw myself clearly for the first time in years, and realized I liked the woman looking back at me. Not because she was successful or wealthy or recognized, but because she was real. Authentically, unapologetically, powerfully real. Marcus may have laughed at my business idea, but his laughter became the fuel that drove me to prove, not to him, but to myself, that I was capable of extraordinary things. And you know what's funny? In trying to make me small, he actually set me free. Because the moment I stopped believing his version of who I was and started building my own version, there was no limit to how high I could rise. They say rock bottom has a basement. But what they don't tell you is that basements make excellent foundations. And from a strong foundation, you can build anything. I built an empire. But more importantly, I built myself. From a courtroom where she was told she was worth $15,000 to a boardroom where she's worth millions, Zara Hayes proved that the only opinion that truly matters is the one you have of yourself. Marcus's laughter faded into silence, but Zara's voice, her real voice, finally rang clear and true. Success isn't about making those who doubted you regret it. It's about making yourself proud. And Zara Hayes had never been prouder.